Back in the late 80s and early 90s, you didn't really have access to the internet and things like that, so every piece of information you could gather about a game definitely played an important role in your decision making around what you were going to buy and things like that. A lot of the times people would go and rent or trade games among friends, and these are the kind of sources of information that we had in the past. Today's subject is The Incredible Hulk 379. This came out in March of 1991. The story behind this comic book right here is that Bruce Banner and the Hulk's personalities have merged, and now they've really become one rather than two separate kind of beings. And so there's Bruce Banner walking around, although he's in Hulk form. He has adopted some of the Hulk's traits, like being aggressive and things like that, as well as some of Bruce Banner's traits as well. So he's sort of like a mix between the two. So it's basically like the Hulk, but he can actually communicate, he can speak, he can, you know, talk coherently, he can have a conversation with them. But he's really aggressive, and his personality is just kind of pompous, basically. And the way that this works is he basically gets into a bar fight, and it erupts between himself and a variety of other like superhero kind of characters, and he's trying to sort of ascertain who sent them, so he basically pretends to lose so they can capture him and take him to where they're coming from, kind of thing. I don't know a whole lot about it because I didn't really follow the series completely, but that's basically what I can get from this magazine. But the subject that we're going to take a look at inside here is an ad that I have a lot of interest in. So here it is on page 10. This is the ad that we're taking a look at. You can see there's tons of different text there. It's actually one of my favorite games on the NES, and unfortunately I do not have it in my collection as of yet, but it is this game right here. I'll see if I can get the box art in there for you. It's Destiny of an Emperor. This is one of the games that I played back in the day when I was a kid. But you can take a look at this ad and we'll go through this. Actually, there's quite a bit of detail in here. I can't go over all of it, it would take too long, but I'll highlight a few points here for you right now. So the first thing that it says here is, over 18,000 years ago, many of the men in China dedicated their life to the study of philosophy and then applied it to a war to end all wars. And the interesting thing about this is, over 18,000 years ago, the setting of this couldn't even possibly have happened. It was more like 2,000 years ago, I think, as far as I can understand from Chinese history. The timeline that they're talking about for Destiny of an Emperor basically has this happening in the time frame that's about 2,000 years ago, so around 190 or 200 would have been accurate, but that's not 18,000 years ago, obviously, so that part of it's definitely incorrect. It says here, the action is as real as it gets thanks to the discovery of authentic documents detailing the era. I don't know how accurate this is actually to the historical events basically unfolding in that time period, but I think it's probably somewhat inaccurate and probably not based off of authentic documents from the era. It is using characters like Liu Bei and a variety of other ones, Lu Bu, and so on from that time period, and obviously that's going to be based on somewhat of the historical people behind that, but I highly doubt that this really follows any sort of timeline that goes along with that. But no matter who you are, it will be hard to win the war against Zhang Zhao, the deadly leader of the Yellow Scarf rebels and founder of the Taiping sect. This is somewhat accurate because you really have to level up your characters in order to win this game. You're not going to be able to get through it. Back in the day, I didn't really get through this game. I got really far into it. I think I got pretty close to the end and just could not defeat it, kind of thing. I'm sure now if I put the time and effort into it, I probably could, but it does take a lot of grinding and things like that. You'll use every strategic cell in your brain to fulfill your constant requirements for weapons, food, and manpower. You'll give important commands that could mean your life and the life of your armies. You're constantly looking for new weapons to upgrade your armies, as well as the food that you are gathering. You need that for your soldiers. It's an absolute requirement. If they don't have food, your armies will be depleted and your numbers won't be as high when you're going into battles and things like that. So you definitely need to have food, and of course manpower is always important. Certain characters can only level up to a certain point, and then they won't gain any more followers and things like that. So you definitely have to switch out as you're moving through each stage of the game. You have to switch out which warriors you're using in order to maximize the manpower and the number of troops that you'll have in your command. This game would be classified as an RPG. It's definitely unique on the NES system because it's not the same as the usual fare that you find when you have things like Dragon War or Final Fantasy, where you're basically looking at fighting dragons, things of that nature, ogres and whatnot, sort of that sort of fantasy lore. This goes beyond that. This is actually taking a look at some Chinese history. Obviously it has some mystical elements built into it, so it does have a magic system because you do have a tactician, which basically has all the abilities that your group can use, and so whatever effect that they have sort of for tactical points, that's how your magic will play out, how effective it'll be. So really when you're choosing your tactician for this, you have to really be careful who you're choosing. They have to be powerful and things like that in order for it to happen. As far as the presentation for this game, it's absolutely beautiful. The graphics are great for the time. I really like the animations when you're in battle and you're in all-out mode and you're banging on each other, and it actually shakes the screen a little bit. You can sort of feel it when you're doing that. It actually gives you a sensation. It's not even like a modern day kind of thing where you get like a rumble pack and you could feel a vibration. You almost get a sense of vibration when the screen shakes like that, which always really made me feel a part of the action when I was playing this as a kid. This game, you should definitely believe the hype, although some of the things in the ad are actually wrong. You know, the date is actually wrong on it, but for the most part it's pretty accurate as far as how hard it is. It's definitely a challenging game. It's not impossible or anything like that. It's not going to rank up there as one of the most hardest NES games to play, but it is a grind fest. You really have to work really hard. You're going to be wandering around a lot just trying to level up and things like that, and get your resources, get your gold so that you can get food and all this kind of stuff. So it's not just a walk in the park, but it's definitely not that challenging to the point where you're going to get frustrated or anything like that. For this game, I highly recommend that you believe the hype.